Welcome back to another TnT tutorial. This week's tutorial was inspired by a guy on Twitter called JD Horton. He made this little hand rig, which is gorgeous, by the way. And the cool thing about this hand rig is it's got this like stretchy little piece of skin here. And he did that with a new feature in After Effects where you can take shape layer paths and you can make nulls off the anchor points of the path, which is really useful, really cool. Something recently added. So get my examples back up here. On the left, you can see I made something sort of similar to his. So it's really just that skin. And on the right, it's a little bit hard to notice, but there's like a little flap of skin under the chin that sort of bends. And little things like those were kind of difficult. It's interesting to talk to because stuff like that was a little bit it's hard to pull off. You either had to use the puppet pin before, or you had to actually go into the path of a shape layer and animate it like that. And anyone who's animated paths knows that it can be a little tedious to like get down into the path and animate it, and you can't really parent things to specific anchor points on paths. So this solves all of those little issues. So let's just get sort of right into it. I made my art in Illustrator. All the different parts and pieces you'd need. I basically just looked at sort of what JD had done and then looked at my own hand. So we got the forearm. Maybe it would be. You got every finger is basically just a copy of one finger, just sized a little differently. So as you can see, you've got the forearm. Then you've got this hand, like your palm, essentially. The three pieces of your thumb. And then the three pieces of a finger. And then right here, we've got our little skin flap, and that's the part that's in between your thumb and index finger that sort of stretches as you open your hand. And so, yeah, once I had made this, I selected all my... Well, first I looked at what my artboard size was, and it's 2800 by 1080. And I go into After Effects, make a new composition at the same size. Made it about 10 seconds long. That's fine. Okay, then we go back to Illustrator. With everything selected, we using Overlord. I do push selection to AE. And then everything comes in as a shape layer. So I got everything set up exactly the same way that I did in Illustrator. From here, I'll just add anchor points, or move my anchor points and do my parenting. It's pretty basic. Looking at one finger, I just numbered them 1 to 3, the 3 being the tip and the 1 being the base. And 3 goes to 2, 2 goes to 1. And then this little piece would connect onto the palm. And I'd move my anchor points all back. so that you can bend them in a way that's natural. I'm not gonna go through and sit here and do all that. I've already done it right here. I believe this is it. Yeah. So now I already have everything sort of parented the way it should be. All the every finger. Cool. And once you've done all that, you've done your parenting and you've got your anchor points set. The next thing you want to deal with is this stretchy skin that I was sort of talking about. And what you want to do... Oh, man, I forgot... I had all these cool little transitions I wanted to use. And I skipped step one. Step one was anchor points and parenting. The step we're on right now is paths to nulls. So, yeah. We're going to take this little guy, and it's really simple. All you have to do, if you have the latest After Effects CC 2018, you'll just dive down into your path, which will be right here. Then you go up into window, which I actually have this cut off in the video, but you'll go up into window and down here in your plugins, if you have it installed correctly, you'll have create nulls from paths. So click on that. And it'll open up something that looks like this. And you will hit point follows nulls. That's essentially, you click that, and that's essentially saying that we're going to make nulls, and the points of that shape or that path are going to follow the nulls. And like I said, this seems like a really simple and obvious thing that After Effects would have, but they just added this. And this is useful because I can't access each one of these little points using just this path, you know? This path controls the entire shape. And now I can parent this null to... Essentially what you do from here is, let's say, I'm going to rename this skin stretch thumb. This is skin stretch palm 1. Palm 2. These you would now parent to the palm. And this one you would parent to your thumb 1, which is this big base layer. So now, when I stretch this, see how the shape is stretching along with it? Sort of like your skin. I don't think I can do it with, yeah. And it follows, the top follows the palm. The thumb you can stretch out. So I wouldn't have been able to accomplish that so easily with just the path. So having these nulls makes that whole thing a lot easier. That brings us to the next step, which is rigging. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. What's next? So rigging. Essentially, I went through and used Duick on all the fingers, the thumb, and the forearm and hand. And we can also start hiding things as we go. So skin stretch and all these nulls, we can honestly lock and hide all of them. Keep things tidy. Okay. So let's start with the index. Solo it. We'll go into auto rig. And I was just using front arm or front leg arm. Just clicking that. And then I was filling this in. We know 3 is our tip. So that's like where your hand is. And I just kind of go. I replaced the arm with the base of the finger, the forearm with the middle of the finger, and the hand is now the tip of the finger. Because you have to have an arm. That's why you start there. Hit OK, and that creates our little Duick controller, just like an arm. Only this is a finger. Kind of looks like an arm when it's just by itself, but yeah. And so that's cool. And I'll just remove the 3 on that. Yeah, so I essentially go through and do that for every single finger. And then once I do, I'll sort of lock, hide my index. And once you do all that, you end up with this. Just these few layers. Let me fit this in the screen. So now every finger will be moving around. Your thumb can move, and see how we still have that skin stretching naturally, which is really cool. I also have it so the hand can tilt, and the hand can sort of move up and down. I actually added this shape back here. This was just a, like a square that represents the upper arm, so I could make this whole arm movement using Duick. So yeah, really, really basic, and then as you go, you continue to hide things and keep your timeline really neat. And if you do it right, you end up with only these 6 little layers here, which is nice to animate. But I actually ended up taking it a step further. In step 4, which is when I use joysticks and sliders. If any of you don't know what joysticks and sliders is, it's just another plugin for After Effects that allows you to easily create joystick and slider controls for different sorts of animations. I've gone over it in a couple of my other videos. I use it all the time for character rigs, and I thought it would be cool to put all the fingers on their own little slider. And I'll show you what that looks like. Looks like this. So essentially, I make each one of these individual sliders using joysticks and sliders. And by doing that, I can use these to... Right now we're on full. Let me go down to quarter. It's running a little bit chunky. I can use these to control the fingers. can do stuff like that. It's just basically easier because, see, to do this animation, I really only needed, and I would be able to do a lot of different variations of hand poses and stuff like that. And I really only need to mess with these keyframes. Once again, it's only 6 layers. If I was using only the Duick rig with no joysticks and sliders, I'd have more keyframes to mess with because I'd have to do position and rotation, you know, which is fine. If you want to do something really specific, I mean, this is totally fine. I probably would use this if I was going to do something really specific. But there's lots of benefits to making it a rig too. If you're going to be making lots of simple hand motions or something, you have a project with a ton of different hands, this is the way to go. And I'll go over real quickly how to rig a finger. If I can get back to my first starting position. There it is. And once again, this is, I just go through each finger, and it's basically the same process. So if you follow me doing it once, you can understand how I would do it for all of them. So we'll just start with the index finger again. What you want to do is anything that you want to animate, put a keyframe on it. So I want position and rotation. And I'm going to get my height a little bit bigger on this composition. So I wanted 2 positions basically, just to show how the rig worked, and that was completely open. And then we're gonna move 1 frame forward, and then we're gonna do a different hand position, which is having this finger completely closed. So we got our 2 open. This could probably be. Okay. And so now that we've got those 2 states, we just select them. We go into joysticks and sliders and go into the sliders position, and we click this button, create new slider null. Name it index control, and that gives us this null, which on it has effects. This effect, which essentially, allows you to move through those 2 states. And I'm gonna unlink it really quick using this button. And that allows me to tweak this and then relink it. So I don't know if this does anything. I'm going to relink it. So yeah, it's not quite going. Let me see if in this rig it's doing the same thing. Whoops. Gonna unlink the index control. Yeah, it's still just going up and down. Whoops. That's the one issue, is you can't get an arc. It won't follow. Because you can't have these. They need to be framed next to each other, like one frame apart. It's still going in a straight line. It's not following the curve. That's one thing I don't know that I have figured out yet. It'll work. I mean, obviously, it looks okay. Here, anyways. But I would like for there to be a curve here instead of just this straight line when it becomes a slider. I don't know if I... Oops. I actually don't know if this will work. Yeah, see, it only does 2. Oh, wait, nope. See, that's interesting. I didn't build this one this way, but I mean, because normally I just build it with 2 keyframes. The start state and the end state. But as you saw, this is a straight line. So it doesn't totally move as naturally as I'd like it to. So what I did was I came in here and added a 3rd keyframe, which I haven't really messed with this before, so I'm sort of learning this right now. And when you do that and link it back up, now you have 2 slider controls. One is from state 1 to 2. And the other is from state 2 to... I don't even know. This is kind of interesting, though. You definitely have more control this way, but it's a little wonky. But yeah, either way, depending on how much control you want, you can add different states of your finger. But like I said, I just did the 2. To start out with, and I went through and did it with every single finger. And then you end up with, well, hold on. Let me go through and show you how to make the slider control as well. Let's unlink this. We're going to go back to just 2. Relink it. Oh, crap. Let's see if I can go back to before. Yep. Okay. So now we just got the 1. Yeah, so you end up with this null. And you can animate between the 2 different states. And from there you'll select this. Let's give this, let's name this index. And then you come over here into sliders, and under UI sliders you hit create. And it creates this. It creates your slider. Hold on, I suck at grabbing this. Boink. And it gives you this little control, and I'm going to bump it down to 1/4 right now. And you can move this. it actually gives you the ability to move past what you've done, so you could like break this finger apart. And you can turn that on or off over here. I usually turn it off so it's not so big, and I don't really need, unless I really need it. Yeah. Gives you a label and everything. And I'll usually lock the label, lock that blue bar, and lock and hide the original control. And then I've got just index here. And now I can just animate this finger however I want. And I just go through, like next I'd go through on the middle, and I'd have my starting position and my secondary position. Put keyframes on those and do the same thing. And then you end up like this with controls for every finger. And once you have these controls, you can basically break them apart, and right now we're in step 5, animation. You can basically break these apart and do different things. Like I just unlinked and like changed the 2 frames, and I changed the second one to a point. Like say you had an animation where you had a different, like you wanted the hands to do different things. This one's pointing. Boop. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I went even further ahead. I duplicated that finger point. And then I just, and because we used Overlord and everything is a shape layer, I just went down in here in all my hidden layers and, you know, changed the colors really easily. And just made it like a blackish tone. Got rid of the forearm, so it's just the hand. And then I made this. Sort of a little hand following a line. And this also uses a different aspect of create nulls from paths, which I'll show you. I'll show you by making like a different, I'll make like a second hand. Let me see here. I'm going to dupe this hand animation because I want this. Let's call it hand stretch open. And what I want to happen is just that second half. I'm going to even offset these a little bit. Oops. And like I said, I turned off the forearm. Bonk. And arm, which you can't see anyways. And like I said, turn this to like a, this was like a light black, and then the back fingers were like hard black. So now I just have the hand opening. Go into this comp. Let's make a new line. Let's bring in our hand first, actually. Hold on, I have to check something. The other thing I have to do is, because as you'll see, let me go into quarter. As this animates, the wrist moves up. And down. I actually can't have that happen because I'm going to need that to just, that's where my anchor point is going to be in this. Like, see if I want to put my anchor point there. Now it's not, the anchor point's not where I want it to be. I want it to be right here. So I gotta stop the wrist from moving up and down. And that's really easy. You just go into hand, look up your hand control, unlink that, go into your hand. You got your 2 keyframes that we made. Get rid of the position. Let's keep it at let's keep the first one. Let's like have it be the first position. And then select hand, reconnect. Oops. All right, now it opens. Now we can set our anchor point. And it won't move. Perfect. Make this green. I just used a simple tint. Map black to, let's make this one red. Something red, or will green look nicer? Kind of like red. I like it red. Okay. Let's scale this down to, let's make it. How big is my other one? 41.6. Okay. This is just an adjustment layer giving everything like a shake. Turn that off for now. So basically, I want this hand to sort of open up and like fly up. So I'm going to make new shape layer. Let's have it do a loop. I didn't have the other one do a loop. I actually don't know how this is going to look. Let's steal that red color. No fill. No fill. No. This was a horrible loop, but whatever. Okay. I'm going to use my butt capper. Make the caps round. Call this line 2. And now, if we go down into our path of this, like we did before, if you use this handy trace path, that essentially makes this null and 2 keyframes of the null traveling along the path. Let me just solo the things we're working on and get rid of that other hand. So see how that just travels along. Rotation and everything, which is really handy. I mean, you could essentially copy the path. You could do this before, is what I'm saying. You would put a keyframe on path, copy this, go to the position of your hand, hit Control, paste, and as you can see, your hand will follow the line that way too, but it's not rotating. The other thing you can do is go to Transform, Auto Orientation, Orient Along Path. And this will, see, ooh. So you could kind of do this before, but I don't know. I think it's kind of like a little easier and a little more reliable. I've had the auto orient along path glitch out on me before. Like, it's done weird stuff. So I think to just have this null created and essentially you parent this bad boy to the null. I think that's a little bit less risky. You can move this out a little bit. And it also makes this cool little thing, which is the null comes with a progress a little progress thing. God, I don't know what you call this. I'm brain farting right now. But you can animate, the progress however you want. And it also comes with this loop checkbox. If you leave that checked, oops. As you can see, it'll just keep looping with only the 2 keyframes, which is pretty cool. The other thing, I probably should have made this path, like, I don't want to really see this hand, so I probably should have made this path start lower, but it's fine. Maybe I can make a smaller hand and a skinnier line. See, I can change that really easily. And the only other thing you have to do now is on your line, you add a trim path and just make it line up with those other 2 keyframes. So start at 0 on your end and go to 100. We don't need a keyframe there. Bada bing, bada boom. Well, let's take that loop off too. We don't want that anymore. So just like that, that was like really easy, and you could duplicate this 100 times, make something really cool. I could probably make that hand go through the other hand. First off, I want to add a little bit of ease. I want this to like kind of go a little bit faster. Come a little later. Essentially, I could dupe this. Let me get my opposite opacity. This live. Oh, sorry for the person who's commenting. I usually don't pay attention to the comments because people don't usually comment. And will this live be saved on the channel? Yes, all my live streams I upload again on here and on my Vimeo. And I'll have to check out that expression. I'm about to finish up here, but I'm going to check that out and see how it works. Thank you, gamers. Just looking up an expression real quick. I want this. This expression right here is just a opposite opacity expression. Except I won't be able to do that because the layers are the same name. Unless I change them. Okay, put the first layer in here. Doop. Go into this. This one line 2. Ooh. Yeah. I need to make a mask on this line. Oh, I'm like getting like confused. This goes coming from behind, goes over. And then it's under it again, right? So just like brain farting at the concept of it. I put that mask on the wrong thing, didn't I? Boop. Okay, so I actually don't want this on this expression on this. And I don't want this expression on this. Don't want any expressions on the lines. Just needed to switch the hand out. Looks a little weird because I wasn't really planning to do this, but it kind of came out kind of cool. If it goes fast enough, you don't. I would have had the loop be a little bit bigger. It's not disappearing for a second, is it now? So yeah, there you have it. Sorry, I'm fucking around on trying to get highlights. I don't know how you're supposed to do this live. I don't know how a lot of people do this live. Go, go, Power Rangers. Yeah. So yeah, the only other, I mean, there's that's that. As you can see, paths to nulls, stretchy hand. You can make a really cool looking natural hand. Duick, joysticks, and sliders. These all work together. The more of these things you kind of pile on top of each other, the cooler things you can make. I made this character just as like a second concept, really. I won't go through it as in much detail, but it's because it kind of goes over the same stuff as the hand. But essentially, it solves a problem I had, so I thought it would be cool to share. Which is like the skin under the chin of a character. That used to be kind of like a difficult little thing to get to look natural and stretch without using the puppet pin. And honestly, I love the puppet pin, but sometimes it can be cruddy. It can break rigs, and you can do something and not be able to go back sometimes. I don't know. So before, you'd make a simple character like this, and you'd always have this gap. And when the head rotates, I don't know, it just like doesn't look perfect. So what I did was the same concept. You end up with these 3 nulls. You attach 2 of them to the head and 1 to the neck, or 2 of them, these back 2 to the neck and this front one to the chin. And now you've got this like cool little skin flap here that like looks really natural. If you move the head forward, it kind of still there. Not that you'd move the head forward, that you might lean forward this way. See? And it's just really cool. I can rig them up with Duick. Have a head rotator, and it's still there. Oops. Then I did like a whole slider thing. Moving the eyes, the brow. This slider controls his hair. I have a slider that controls the head bounce. And then one for the eyelids so you can blink. This was kind of like an overly aggressive nod, but I just wanted to sort of show it off. So yeah, I mean, really, that's it. I just kind of wanted to show off that create nulls from paths and how handy it sort of becomes when you use it with character rigs, because there's lots of just different little things. They're really subtle, as you can tell, like just like skin flaps between different joints, but that kind of stuff it's the little things that really start to make your work stand apart. And I think this is a cool little feature. I'm sure there's tons of other great uses for it that I'll come up with along the way, but these are just two I wanted to share today. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back at some point with a new tutorial, but I've shied away from scheduling them because I don't want it to really feel like a job or anything. Just when I have something to share, I'll share it. So if you follow me on any of my social media, you'll be sure to see them. But if you want to see me live, you got to follow me on YouTube, and sometimes you'll get a notification. And if you miss it, it's no big deal because all this stuff ends up on my blog, my YouTube, and my Vimeo. So no worries. I'll catch you next time, and thanks for joining me today.